Okay, it's 5:45, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd really like to get a roll call on who's even present, because I cannot see. Oh, now I can see. I see Mr. Miner is present. I see Mrs. Saunders is present. I see Mr. Dye is present, and Reverend Golden is present. I see everybody present. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I'm not sure the room can hear me. Can everybody hear me in the room?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Miner is present. I see Mrs. Saunders is present. I see Mr. Dye is present. And is that Mrs. Boys? Mrs. Boys, I can't quite hear you. Can you get closer to your microphone?
Oh, were you talking to me?
I'm here.
I'm not sure who was just speaking, but I could not hear.
Madam Chair, why don't each of us speak one at a time into our microphones, and then you can determine who's speaking loudly enough. This is Reverend Golden.
Okay, I'm going to need Reverend Golden to get closer to his microphone because I cannot hear it. I don't know about the other two on the line.
Yeah, I can barely hear him.
Yeah, you're going to have to get closer to your microphone and speak up.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, I can. That's so much better.
God, I was hoping I would never say that out loud.
All right. Thank you, Nick, for helping everybody.
Nick,
We just want to make sure we can all hear each other. Okay, so I'm going to call our meeting to order. It is March 24th, 2020. It is 5:47 p.m. And I'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Can everybody hear me? All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. And for the record, I'd like to just say that Mr. Kennedy is on the phone, Dr. Hopes is on the phone, and Gina Messenger is on the phone. And in the room, we have Mrs. Saunders, Mr. Miner, Reverend Golden, Mr. Dye. And I can't see who's waiting in the wings. I believe I saw maybe Mr. Wagner and Mrs. Boys are also there.
And Attorney Teitelbaum.
And Attorney Teitelbaum is in the room?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for telling me. And with that, I'm going to begin with our declaration of an emergency. The board finds that an emergency exists in Manatee County related to the coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19, as evidenced by the reasons listed below. Coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19 is severe acute respiratory illness that can spread among humans through respiratory transmission and presents with symptoms similar to those of influenza. On March 1st, 2020, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis issued Executive Order 2051, establishing the COVID-19 response protocol and directs public health emergency. The World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic on March 12, 2020. The United States of America declared a national health emergency due to COVID-19 on March 13, 2020. Several cases of COVID-19 have been confirmed in Manatee County. Until the emergency is declared over by the state and federal authorities, the school board shall take all necessary steps needed to conduct essential district business in a manner that will also protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public, as well as district employees and officials. The board is authorized to meet virtually through electronic means. The board meeting shall continue to be recorded, minutes taken, and streamed and broadcasted. The board recognizes the importance of public comment and public transparency, which must be protected, but must be balanced with the uniqueness of a pandemic. Therefore, the public shall be allowed to comment electronically in advance of board actions, which comments shall be available to the board in advance, and instructions on how to post comments electronically shall be posted on the district boardroom building entrance doors, and the district website, which it was before this meeting. And I'm looking for a motion to approve our declaration of an emergency.
So move.
Hear a motion
Second.
and a second. Is there any discussion on this item? And just so that I could do this in the most orderly fashion, I'm going to start with the mover and the seconder and then go around, just because it will be difficult for us all to see each other.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just going to start in that order. So I believe the mover was Mr. Golden, Reverend Golden. Is there anything you'd like to add to this?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Hopes, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. I heard Mr. Kennedy, you had something you wanted to add.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I just actually have a question. Is the purpose of this solely for the hotspot purchasing item, or is there anything beyond that?
That's a great question. I would refer to Mr. Dye. He suggested that we add this to the agenda today, so I would refer that question to Mr. Dye. Mr. Dye, can you answer that for us?
Yes, this is Steve Dye. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, just lean into the microphone.
Yes. No, the purpose is not just for that one item. The purpose is to have the board declare an emergency so that you can run your board meetings in a fashion that will also protect the public and other persons during the pandemic. So it allows you to utilize your emergency powers to change the protocol for how you conduct your meetings and business. So it's a more general purpose.
Oh. Okay. Does that answer your question, Mr. Kennedy?
I have a follow-up if I could.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Dye, so there's the board meeting, but then on the hotspot item, there is a purchasing angle to this emergency declaration as well?
Yeah.
The superintendent wants to comment on that.
Madam Superintendent.
Yes, due to the emergency nature, I attached a letter in statute for we needed to purchase hotspots that exceeded my financial authority of $50,000 to get the order in order to meet the deadline of the students being able to have internet connectivity in some of our remote areas. So with the expectation that I put it on the first available board meeting afterwards. So that one had to be submitted last week for us to meet the timeline required. So that is under this also emergency umbrella.
Okay, thank you. It's interesting. I appreciate it.
Okay. Do you have any further questions, Mr. Kennedy?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Minor, do you have any questions or any discussion for this topic?
No, in favor of the resolution, I will vote in favor of it.
Can you get a little closer to the microphone? I'm having a hard time understanding everything you're saying, and I want to hear you.
Okay. Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. I said that I'm in favor of the motion. I will vote in favor of the motion. Thank you.
Great. Okay, let's call a vote then. I'm going to just do a roll call vote so that everybody can hear, because otherwise I'm afraid we'll miss. So I'm just going to go down the line and do a roll call vote, if that's okay with everybody. Is that fine?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's the most orderly way to do this in this situation. Okay, so Mr. Kennedy, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Hopes?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Minor?
Aye.
And Reverend Golden? Hello? Reverend Golden, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and I vote aye as well, so that passes unanimously. Okay, let's move on to our next item. That's the approval of the agenda. And the chair has found good cause to amend the agenda to include all items listed under agenda amendments on the March 24th, 2020 agenda, updated March 24th, 2020, and posted to the district website, manateeschools.net. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, is it
So moved.
appropriate at this time to ask to amend the agenda?
Okay. Should we move, you'd like to amend the agenda before it's approved? I mean, before it's a motion, I'm sorry, before there's a motion?
Madam Chairman, may I make a motion? This is Minor.
I'm sorry, what, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, may I make a motion? I'd like to, move that the presented agenda be approved with one amendment, and the amendment would
Okay,
be...
hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on, Mr. Minor. You're adding an amendment, and it sounds like Reverend Golden is adding an amendment. It sounds like there's already two amendments going on right here. And I'd ask, did either one of these amendments get proposed as our rules we had come to rules saying we would ask for these things to be changed the Friday before this meeting? Did either one of these two items come up at that time and given to our agency clerk so that this agenda could be amended prior to this meeting?
I can only speak to one, Madam Chair, but it was my understanding. It was my understanding that that was the cutoff with respect to anybody being able to amend the agenda other than the chair, and that the request could be made of the chair to make an amendment even up until this meeting. I'm just not quite so sure as to when the request should be made of the chair. Is it before we adopt the agenda, or is it after we adopt the printed agenda as amended? And I don't, maybe I would defer to the attorney to ask. I'm not so sure whether it will be added or whether you will approve it, but I do want to at least the record to show that I asked for it.
Okay. Mr. Guy, can you tell us what is the proper way to add these amendments now that we're in this meeting? We had an agreement that we would add them before this meeting. That obviously has not happened in that manner. Here we are. Should we have a motion in a second and then discuss these amendments, or should we add these amendments now and then have a vote? Vote on each amendment and then vote on it in totality.
Well, I believe, Madam Chair, you can entertain the amendments now and decide if you want to permit the agenda to be amended or not allow them, and proceed with the published agenda.
Well, it's not something that I would necessarily allow in this meeting, correct? It's something that the board would have to vote on for each one of these amendments.
Well, that's an alternative of how you can proceed, is you can allow each of these amendments to be heard and voted on by the board.
Okay, why don't we
Madam
start with
Chair.
Reverend Golden? What amendment would you like to start with?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The amendment that I would like to add to the agenda is simply to approve all qualified pre-K personnel to receive the best and brightest allocation based upon the 2019-2020 guidelines. All of the other best and brightest allocations will be coming out in tomorrow's paychecks. And I know we've discussed this before, and I'm just trying to make sure that we don't overlook this or let it go by beyond everyone else getting the best and brightest allocation. The impact, I'm told by the superintendent, is going to be about $90,000. So that's the amendment that I'm asking you to allow the board to decide on whether or not to embrace. Thank you.
I'll second that.
So, I would say, so there's a motion and there's a second. Is there any discussion right now on adding this to the agenda? Not the actual topic, but just adding it to the agenda. Any further discussion I can go in order, or does anybody have a desire to speak out on this?
This is Steve Dye again. Just one
Yeah.
thing I want to remind the board is any of the agenda items that you act on tonight, you need to remember that it has to be an emergency. It has to be an item that you determine is an emergency action.
And let me speak to that. As I understand it, all of the people in the county tomorrow who are going to, who are entitled to receive the best and brightest allocation will receive them in their paychecks tomorrow. Given the circumstances and the uncertainty that exists with respect to employment, with respect to just the variability, the ability of people to be able to address their fundamental needs, I think that since we have already, in principle, said that we would agree to do this, I think that it is of an emergent nature that we do it all at the same time. Since I'm not quite so sure what constitutes an emergency, and if I'm left to define that, this is an emergency.
Okay, I would
Madam
like to
Chair.
address. I'd really like to address a comment that he just made, if you don't mind.
Sure, of course.
This item is very important to me, but there's a reason why it wasn't on this agenda. It, to me, is something that we cannot, from my understanding after talking to the superintendent, it's something that we cannot fund in this fiscal year. And because of that, this will not get paid out until July, unless I'm wrong, and the superintendent can correct me. But the last time I talked to her about this was something that was not budgeted for in this fiscal year, and something that we were going to have to budget for in the following fiscal year, which means we can put this on any agenda, this one or any other one, and because of that, I didn't think it was an emergency. I would like for these people to be paid. I don't feel like the state is being fair to them, but us putting it on tonight doesn't change when they're going to be paid.
Madam Chair.
And that's my only point about that.
Madam Chair, I withdraw the request.
Madam Chair, it's Dr. Hopes. I agree.
I withdraw the request.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Gina,
Mr.
Madam Chair, can I address something?
Sure.
Thank you. I have a question. I mean, I think you're right, Gina, in that this doesn't have to get done tonight. We clearly have a board majority that would like to make our pre-K teachers whole. I do have a question, though, about why are we considering this an emergency board meeting? This was a regular meeting that we had on our board calendar and have always had scheduled. So I'm not sure why we're calling this an emergency meeting.
Can I ask Mr. Dye to answer that?
Yes, it's because of the overall emergency that we're operating in because of the coronavirus. The Department of Education, the governor, is asking all public bodies to limit their interactions to just items that need to be done during this unique period that we're in, not operate in normal fashion. So it's not coming really from us. We're cooperating with the effort to fight the virus.
Madam Chair, Reverend Golden.
Yes, Reverend Golden.
Madam Chair.
Hold on, Mr. Minor. Dr. Hopes.
In that case, I'm now concerned about why this is an emergency meeting, since in fact it was a scheduled meeting noticed on a calendar that we have had prepared from the very beginning. As I understand the emergency declaration that I just agreed to, it simply adds to our capability to meet for emergency purposes. It does not substitute our regular meeting agenda for an emergency meeting. In fact, there are some very specific and particular guidelines as to which we are abiding by right now. in terms of how we conduct the regular business of the school board. And I think this gets deeper into an issue that I'll just lay it out here on the table. I'm not quite so sure that as constitutional officers that we have not done what we are entitled to do to begin with, and that is to declare a state of emergency as it relates to the school district, as the governor has declared a state of emergency as it relates to the business of the state, and as has been declared in so many other states, and as some states have declared with respect to closing their schools. So I agree with my learned colleague here in terms of the definition of what constitutes an emergency meeting. What I disagree with is whether or not this is an emergency meeting, if in fact it has been called, noticed, and in fact was calendared when we adopted our calendar months ago. And if that is the case, then the logic that you employed with respect to saying, let's delay this, is not valid in this instance. And we're back to where I'm concerned about treating one classification of employees differently than all of the others. So probably greater minds than mine will have to decide this, but I brought this up because I was assured that this could be placed on this calendar. I would never have brought this up if I thought this was an emergency meeting, and I appreciate Mr. Kennedy for drawing our attention to the fact that this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the school board, and has been. Thank you.
I have a follow-up.
Dr. Hope.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First and foremost, this meeting was scheduled for the sole purpose of approving the CAFR when it was finalized. Secondly, we were under initial direction from the Commissioner of Education and the Governor of the state of Florida to cancel all school board meetings between the time of the order and June 30th of 2020. Now, after judicial review and the Attorney General, it was determined that the governor needed to come out with an additional executive order waiving certain statutory requirements. There are extraordinary powers that are given to governors and presidents and other elected officials in a state of emergency, as our in-house law firm of Golden, Minor, Dye, and Teitelbaum would agree. This is a public health emergency. It has been declared a state of emergency by the state of Florida, by the President of the United States, and we are under a directive which we should abide by. I agree. This meeting should not even be occurring, and the two most vulnerable members of the board, because of your ages, according to the CDC and the World Health Organization, should not be in a meeting in contact with anybody other than people you live with. So I agree. This whole agenda lacks any form of an emergence, even and including the superintendent's authority under the state of emergency to buy and spend what is necessary to comply with the Commissioner of Education's orders and the governor's orders to move this district forward, to move on to online learning. So I'm pretty convinced that this meeting shouldn't even be taking place, and we certainly should not be adding to the agenda in a time of significant public health crisis. So the direction from the state, from the governor and the Commissioner of Education, was that all school board meetings were canceled through June 30th, and only meetings that are deemed an emergency would be held, and those meetings would be held telephonically or virtually, not in person. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Gina, when I get a chance, I'd like to address them.
Okay, I want to give Mr. Minor a chance. I don't think I've heard from Mr. Minor. Do you have anything to add to this specific topic, Mr. Minor?
I believe that this board is acting properly in accordance with the law and the directions. I respectfully do not agree with whatever my colleagues have just said. I think we have a responsibility to Manatee County, the schools, and the children to act appropriately, and I think that's what we're doing, and we're on course to do so. We are gathered together in our individual ways of fulfilling what we think is consistent with our oath, and I think that we are on our way to that and we adopted the resolution and of declaration of emergency. We are meeting virtually, through the community, to protect the community, but we are meeting. We have said in our resolution we will record this, minutes taken. They're streamed, broadcasted electronically. Our community has a right, to be informed of what we're doing, and we're carrying that out. We're going to allow public comment and try to be as transparent as possible. And I don't think that the intent or the wishes of our eminent governor and others was to exclude that kind of communication, which we have declared to be proper in our declaration of emergency. We can debate if something is appropriate of an emergency. I think that each of us is entitled to their different perception of emergency, and I think that the board member, Reverend Golden, has brought up a topic that maybe all of us don't agree is an emergency, but we have the opportunity to vote on that, and he has a right to bring it up as an amendment, asking for an amendment to the agenda. I support adding it to the agenda, and then we can debate, the merits of it, whether we really think it is an emergency or not. But I support Reverend Board Member, Golden in adding it, to the agenda. What I've always understood, kind of our board rules were that we would not ask the chair, to amend an agenda after noon on Friday. That was my understanding. However, Robert's Rules of Order, which we've all agreed to abide by, allow for amendment of an agenda by a majority of the members after a meeting is duly called. And I think that is what board member the Reverend Golden is seeking to do. I think it's proper, and I think it's proper for us to vote on that now, whether to allow Reverend Board Member Golden's proposal to be added to the agenda for this meeting. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Vice Chair Kennedy, I know you had something else you wanted to add.
I do. Thanks, Madam Chair. And I'll be quick. I want to address the topic that Dr. Hopes brought up, because I think it's relevant for tonight, and it's also relevant for the board moving forward through the end of the fiscal year. What the governor did is issue an executive order which allows us to meet without a quorum being present in the room, which is what we are doing tonight, obviously. So we're good by that. What the Department of Education and Richard Corcoran did last week is attempted to suspend all board meetings through June 30th. But then when called out on it the next day, sent someone out to backtrack and say, well, they were just strong suggestions. So we were not required to do anything under DOE. I mean, I appreciate DOE waiving evaluations, waiving school grades, waiving state assessments, but to tell school boards that we can't meet until July, especially when kids were planning on coming back until April 15th, again, those were all just strong suggestions. For example, if we want to continue to have teacher evaluations here in Manatee County, we can. because everything that has come through DOE is a strong recommendation, because we, under the Florida Constitution, have control of this district. We are the constitutional officers in control of the school district. So I don't want anybody to think that anything coming from DOE is a command or an order that we must abide by. We are the constitutional officers in charge here, and I want to have all of us remember that going forward. And as far as the motion to amend, Reverend Golden, I never withdrew my second, so the motion is actually still under debate.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy, because I was about to be.
Okay, I would like to comment just because everyone else has had a go around to address a few different things. Number one, I actually agree more with Dr. Hopes' reading on how we should be proceeding. However, I think the definition of what is an emergency is probably a very tricky word to define. And there are things on our agenda tonight that are there in order for us to move forward to better support the district. And those things should still be done in an emergency. So I kind of see both sides of that. And Mr. Minor did a great job of bringing us back to our point. And our point is what Reverend Golden has made a motion. And Reverend Golden has made a motion to add to the agenda approval of funds for Best and Brightest for pre-K teachers. Is there any further discussion on that specific topic?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair.
Dr. Hopes.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we, quite frankly, sitting here today, regardless of where we're located, have any idea what our financial resources are going to be between now and June 30th, the end of the fiscal year. While this issue probably would not get paid out to the end of the fiscal year or the first of the next year, we cannot even count on the budget that was passed by the legislature. The legislature is expected to reconvene in May after the next revenue estimating conference. The economists are clear in their prediction that this pandemic is going to have a devastating effect on the economy, and we should be judicious in how we commit to any kind of funding, because quite frankly, none of us know what our revenues are going to be. We don't know what our tax revenues are going to be for the 1920 fiscal year. We should only be spending money that needs to be spent during the state of emergency. And for us to sit here today, and I've been one of the strongest proponents of pre-K teacher equality and equity in both statutes and funding. But we are in a dire state of emergency. We have not even begun to see the impact on our district, on our community, and our economy. And we need to continue to be as judicious as we have been in the past few years around our finances. We need to stick to those items that are necessary for the continuation of the district and minimize the time that we are requiring the superintendent, our general counsel, and others to be in a room breathing air that is limited, cross ventilation to the point that we can always smell the broccoli in the crock pot in our area outside the board chamber. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Madam Chair, this is
I just want to speak to specifically to adding this item to the agenda, not the merits of the item, but just adding it to the agenda. Okay. Mr. Minor, do you have something else you want to add?
I was just going to, ask the chair to call the question, and we voted up and down whether or not to put it on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay. Is everybody ready to vote? All right, let's just do a roll call vote. All those in favor of adding Reverend Golden's motion, which is to add to the agenda an item concerning paying pre-K teachers best and brightest out of our general fund. I'll start with Mr. Minor. How do you vote?
Aye.
Reverend Golden, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Hopes, how do you vote?
No.
Mr. Kennedy, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote no on this for the item for the reasons I've discussed before. But it passes in a 3-2 vote. It will be added to it is added to our agenda. We haven't approved our agenda yet, but that amendment has been added to our agenda. Mr. Minor, I understand that you also had an agenda amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a proposed amendment to ask the superintendent to allocate $2,000 with respect to what I perceive as emergency supplies for our school on 27th Street when it commences opening, and to have the money available before then. I am asking that 80% of it go there, 20% to the campus at Harley Middle School, and that its use be restricted to use for sanitary wipes, Kleenex, copy paper, toilet paper, things of that nature, which I think are important for the health and safety of our students.
Okay. Mr. Minor has made a motion. If I understand correctly, the motion is to allot $2,000 to the school on 27th Street, as he said, and also the Harley campus.
Yeah, we're talking about Horizons.
Right. I understand what you're talking about, but that's not what your motion was. Your motion was the school on 27th Street.
Yeah.
So I'm being particular. And 20% of that to go to Harley, and to be used for very specific items such as wipes, paper towels, toilet paper, copy paper. Am I understanding your motion correctly, Mr. Minor?
Yes, I should have said, the school really has two campuses, one on 27th and one at the Harley location. And Horizons, I should say Horizons has two campuses, and I'm asking that 80% would go to the 27th Street campus and 20% to the Harley, for the health of the students when they return. And I think that these things there would, help ensure that whatever problems are there now won't be a negative impact on the students and staff when they return.
I second that motion, Madam Chair. Reverend Golden.
Okay. There's been a motion and a second.
For debate, Madam Chair.
Hold on. I'm just going to go in order. Mr. Minor made the motion. Mr. Minor, would you like to add anything about adding this to the agenda? Not the merits of it, but adding it to the agenda.
Yes, I'm asking it to be added to the agenda because of the state of emergency, and I think that there is an emergency to have this available to Horizons before the students return to school. That's why I've asked it to be put on in this emergency meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Reverend Golden, you were the seconder. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, Dr. Hopes, I heard that you would like to add something. What would you like to add?
Yes, ma'am. A question for the maker of the motion. This is for a $2,000 item that deals with, I'm assuming, cleaning and disinfecting for supplies for two campuses of Horizons. The superintendent has $50,000 in spending authority. I believe during a state of emergency, she has more than that. Are we actually getting down to the level of micromanagement that we are going to make a budget amendment
of order
for $2,000? Let me ask the maker of the motion, with regards to confidence in the superintendent's ability to determine what needs to be spent on each one of our campuses for disinfection and cleaning given the fact that we have a deputy superintendent, are you making the motion, Mr. Minor, because you do not feel the superintendent is capable and her staff of determining how much needs to be allocated for cleaning and disinfecting supplies for each one of our campuses? That is the question for the maker of the motion, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, may
Mr.
I?
Minor, would you like to respond to that question?
The answer is no.
So, Madam Chair, if the answer to the question is no, that is a moot motion, which we should not even have to debate. I'm confident that the superintendent and her staff have an effective treatment plan to ensure that students, should they even return during this fiscal year, are going to return to safe and clean facilities. Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be voting no on this motion to amend the agenda.
Vice Chair Kennedy, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, thanks. Just two quick reminders. In my opinion, this is not an emergency meeting, just to say that again. And Mr. Minor, I actually appreciate you bringing this forward, because we all received an email from a teacher at Horizons, and this is not about cleaning supplies. This is about regular supplies that teachers need. I agree that the superintendent would probably just do this on her own at the request of a single board member. But if Mr. Minor would like to do it through a board meeting, that's fine. It's a very small item. Horizons has a ton of kids these days. You know, that the teachers there are working with some of the most challenged and challenging kids in the district. I think it would be a good thing for this board to show that school, those two campuses, some support. Thanks.
Okay, we've had one go around. I would just like to ask the superintendent a question myself. I would like to know if the school needed these supplies and they requested it from the district, because right now, from my understanding, is there's a budget freeze. If the school were to request any of these supplies that they needed in order to function, would the school be granted those?
The answer is yes. There is a process. The principal is to submit a request. It goes through their direct supervisor, and then it is submitted and to cabinet and vetted and deemed needed. And so I sign request every day. So I signed many at schools today that needed extra cleaning supplies. As a matter of fact, Mr. Wagner purchased a lot of extra, and we just pushed them out to schools. I've not seen this request. I didn't get the email from the teacher, but I did ask Mr. Wagner to look into this topic when I heard it being discussed tonight, and he will look into, because I guess I'm not sure if it's cleaning supply needs or other needs. So I guess there's a little bit of confusion as to what the products are. But we definitely have budgets for schools. We have supplies for schools. So I'm not really sure what the issue is, but we are looking into it right now, and we'll certainly address it and take care of it.
So just a follow-up question. If a principal comes to you and says, we need more copy paper, but our budget has run out, would you supply the copy paper?
If there was a need for the copies, absolutely. If it's for testing for students, if they mismanage their budget, then we have a whole training on how to work with them on ensuring that they're able to manage their dollars appropriately. But if it's copying paper, I'm not sure that anyone needs that today, but again, I have to see what the order is. We work with them. We have a quarter of school left, and we certainly want all the students, no matter where they go, to be successful and have whatever materials they need. So Mr. Wagner will be following up to determine what those items are. We'll work with Mr. Clark and Mr. Hurd to get that addressed.
Okay. I truly wish that these things had been requested beforehand so that the district could have vetted these things and done more research and been able to consult the concerned parties before it was brought before us, but I do not support this amendment at this time because I think that this is micromanaging if we move forward with this. That being said, is there any further discussion on adding this to the agenda before I call the vote? Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to just do a roll call vote. I'll start with Mr. Kennedy. How do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Hopes?
No.
Reverend Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Minor?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote no. So it passes in a 3-2 vote. So now we have added to the agenda this item as well. So this is going to be kind of tricky because I don't have the computer in front of me. We have we added to the agenda pre-K pay. Sorry, I'm making myself a note. And we've now added Horizon Supplies. Okay. So we have two amendments. I don't think we ever actually had a motion and a second on the original agenda. At this time, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved by, this is Minor.
So, second by Kennedy.
Okay, so I hear there's
Madam
a motion
Chair,
by Mr. Steiner and a second by Mr. Kennedy to approve the agenda as amended. Dr. Hopes?
Yes, Madam Chair, for an amendment to the agenda as amended, I move that items under new business, items number 2 through 8 be removed from the agenda, with the exception of amending numbers 2 and 3 to utilize the standard AIA contract that has been adopted in Florida. And therefore, with amending 2 and 3 to utilize the AIA contract as opposed to the contract the district's been using for 20 years, I move that these non-essential items be removed for the agenda. They and that is my motion. They have been added to the agenda at the last minute. They are using the contract that the board has previously said we were not going to contract under those terms, and not one of these projects is required at this time. That is my motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, so that I understand correctly, Dr. Hopes has made a motion to remove items 2 through 8 and alter 2 and 3 to change the contract to the AIA contract. Am I understanding your motion correctly?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Okay, hearing none, that dies on the floor. So I am back to the approval of the agenda as amended. It has been motioned and seconded. I'm going to call the vote, and I'm just going to do a roll call vote. Mr. Minor, can you start us off?
I'm in favor.
Approve the agenda as amended.
Yeah, I'm voting yes in favor of the agenda as amended. Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Golden, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Dr. Hopes?
No.
And I actually vote no as well for the reasons that I've already listed. But it does pass 3-2. So let's move forward. We have approval of the CAFR is our first item. Madam Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I do. I recommend the approval of the comprehensive annual financial report as of June 30th, 2019.
This is Minor.
So moved.
I move for approval.
Okay, I heard two different people tried to move. Can Dr. Hopes can be the motioner? Mr. Minor, do you mind being the seconder?
I don't mind being the seconder. I'm honored to be. Thank you.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you so much. Is there any discussion on the CAFR? Great. We will do a roll call vote. Mr. Minor, how do you vote in favor of, or how do you vote for the CAFR?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Kennedy, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, Gina, that was my fault. I was talking, but I had my phone on mute. No, just a very brief comment. Just a very brief comment that I want to thank the superintendent and her leadership team. Granted, when this CAFR closes out last June 30th, we've come through a lot. We're in a totally different place, but we are obviously by this CAFR in a strong position. We've got a 5% fund balance, and I want to again thank the superintendent and the team for getting us, leading us to such a strong financial and academic position. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. I appreciate that. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, Steve Dye, I just had one comment.
Yes, Mr. Dye.
Yes. Did the board receive any public comments on any of the items on the agenda before the meeting?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I wanted to clarify also with Mr. Kennedy, who's been stating that this is not an emergency meeting, and that is correct. This is a planned special meeting that's been calendared since before the coronavirus 19 conditions were where they are today. So I think it would be better to characterize this as a meeting during an emergency and not an emergency meeting. An emergency meeting is a type of meeting that's called without the normal notice and other time periods that you follow, and that's certainly not what this meeting is. And so, really, all meetings that the board continues to have are not necessarily going to be emergency meetings. You can continue to have your board meetings on your schedule, but they're being done in an emergency conditions. So the way that the meetings are done is different than normal. So I just wanted to clarify that going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Dye. I appreciate your clarification. I think calling it a meeting during an emergency is proper, and I appreciate that. And this meeting was scheduled, you're correct. And these items were on the agenda since it was posted, except for the ones that got added, the hot spots and the stuff that got added today. Everything else has been on there since the agenda was published, because this was a planned meeting specifically for the CAFR. Okay, so any other discussion on the CAFR? Hearing none, let's vote. Mr. Minor, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Reverend Golden?
I also vote yes.
Dr. Hopes?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so it is unanimous. Okay, let's move on to item number 2, approval of Palmview K-8 school gymnasium. Madam Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I recommend the approval of Palmview K-8 school gymnasium addition agreement between owner and Folly Bryant Architects in the amount of $167,000.
Minors moves for approval.
Second.
Okay, I hear Mr. Minor made the motion and Mr. Kennedy seconded it. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
I think so. Okay. Is there any discussion? Mr. Minor, can I start with you? Is there any discussion on this?
I think it's very appropriate, that we go forward with this gymnasium addition. I think that the superintendent needs a lot of praise, what she's done to make Palmview an enviable school across the country.
Thank you. Vice Chair Kennedy, you were the seconder. Do you have anything to add?
No, ma'am.
Reverend Golden,
No comment.
Dr. Hoax. Dr. Hoax, are you still with us?
I'm here. I move for a motion. I move that we approve the amount in the superintendent's recommendation, but that we ask the board's general counsel to work with the standard AIA agreement, the American Institute of Architects agreement, and modify it as the board general counsel and chair deem appropriate for the purposes of this project. I do not believe that we should be using the existing contract, and I further believe that Foley Bryant would be in agreement of using the standard AIA agreement, which they contract with probably every day. That is my motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, Dr. Hoax has made a motion to have the board's attorney work to alter the contract or alter the AIA contract to work with the company that's here. Am I saying that correctly? I don't have a better way to say that. You had a better way to say that.
Yeah. Basically, that rather than the contract that our construction department already had Foley Bryant exercise, that the amount of the project, the description of the project, everything stays the same, but the contract between the school board and Foley Bryant Architects shall be the standard AIA agreement with modifications deemed appropriate by the board's general counsel and the board's chair. That is my motion.
Is there a second to Dr. Hoax's motion? Okay, hearing none, that dies for lack of a second. Dr. Hoax, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'd like to remind the board that we all decided that we wanted the standard agreement modified before we entered into any contract. And there is a perfectly acceptable agreement that other districts and other businesses use every day, which is the AIA agreement, that is more balanced in its contractual terms than the one that we have decided as a board needs to be changed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, and we've all had a turnaround, so I'm just going to comment. At the last workshop when we discussed this contract, I think we all did agree that the contract does need to be updated, but we all also agreed that we needed to move forward on the projects that were important to the school district in order to keep the school district moving, in order to support our students. And one of the things that I believe came out of that workshop and the consensus of the board was to allow the team that was going to be put in place, the committee that was going to be put in place prior to our decision. There was already going to be a committee put in place to alter the contracts. And if my understanding was the board supported allowing the district to create that committee and work through the contract and then bring that contract forward to us in the future, hopefully before some of our larger projects are underway and we get our GMP, and if not, then we will alter them as they come along, but allow the committee and the district to work through those changes because there were no findings and that there were only recommendations, and the district recognizes that they need to update it. And the best way to do that is to allow them to have the committee. They have, part of that committee will be a board certified person in construction contracts. And so that to me is the appropriate person to be working on this contract. And I'm not an attorney. We do have a law office out there, but I'm not one of them. And there is an appropriate person that will be working on these, and then it will be brought back before us for us to critique or edit or talk about more if need be. But these were items that we said that we wanted to move forward on as a board at the last workshop, which is why they are here. Is there any further discussion on this? I feel like we've debated this a lot already in the workshop and
Jean-
even before that.
Madam Chair? Madam Chair?
Yes. Yes.
Thanks, Tina.
Vice Chair Kennedy.
No, I just want to say I concur with your recollection of the multiple workshops and conversations we've had about these projects and the process in general. And I would just ask that we be consistent if we have criticisms of other board members about micromanagement, that we be consistent about that, because one board member's important item might be micromanagement to another. So I just hope we won't fall into accusations like that. Thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All right. Hearing none, we are on item number 2, approval of Palmview K-8 Gymnasium between the owner and Folly Bryant Architects. And I'm just going to do a roll call vote of all those in favor. Why don't you start us off, Vice Chair Kennedy?
Yes.
How do you vote? Yes. Okay. Dr. Hopes?
Yes.
Reverend Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Minor?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously. Let's move on to item number 3. That's Palmview K-8 Gymnasium between the owner and, oh, my computer just went to sleep, and NDC Construction Company. Madam Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I recommend the approval of Palmview K-8 School Gymnasium Addition, agreement between owner and NDC Construction Company, pre-construction services in the amount of $129,200 and, nope, is that right? Yes, $129,250.
So moved by Minor to approve the superintendent's recommendation.
Okay, there was a motion by Mr. Minor, and I believe the second was by Vice Chair Kennedy. Is there any discussion on this? I feel like we kind of had the discussion.
Yes, Madam Chair. The same argument that I laid out before. I'm in favor of this project. The agreement that the district is using for this incorporates absolutely no changes that have been recommended. And this contract for pre-construction services can wait for a few weeks for us to have a reasonable contract. And for that reason, I'll be voting no on this project.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All right, then I will do a roll call vote. Mr. Minor, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Item number 3, Palmview K-8. Yes. Okay, Reverend Golden.
Yes.
Vice Chair Kennedy.
Yes.
Dr. Hopes.
No.
And I vote yes. So that is a 4-1 vote with Dr. Hopes dissenting. Let's move on to item number 4, Sugg Middle School replacement. Madam Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I recommend the approval of Sugg Middle School replacement agreement between owner and Harvard Jolly Architect in the amount of $1,981,400.
Minor moves to approve the superintendent's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, I heard a motion by Mr. Minor and a second by Vice Chair Kennedy. I'm just going to go in order. Mr. Minor, do you have any discussion for this item?
I think that the superintendent's recommendation deserves our approval. I think that a great deal of thought has gone into this, and I think it's time to move forward.
Okay, and the seconder was Vice Chair Kennedy. Do you have anything to add?
No, ma'am.
Okay, Reverend Golden.
No comment.
Dr. Hopes?
Yes, Madam Chair. My understanding of this agreement still anticipates building the same building that was what we now call Mona J Middle School. It is not possible in the current design of that building to incorporate Mr. Minor's successful motion to achieve energy efficiency. And I believe the contract for the design of the Suggs Middle School replacement should be in accordance with what the board majority chose. And we should be designing a design that meets our energy efficiency requirements and our program projected programmatic structure at the school, and this contract does not do that. This contract is for an amount of money that would be equal to the architects designing an energy efficient building from scratch, and therefore I will be voting no on this contract. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I ask my board members to remember the majority vote, which was made by a motion of Mr. Minor to ensure that this building meets those efficiency standards. The construction department recommended this architect and the following contractor because they had built Mona Jane, and it was anticipated to be the pretty much exact same facility. And therefore, I think we should rebid this project, incorporating the design requirements that the board adopted with Mr. Minor's motion. Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask that you vote no on this and rebid it so that everyone understands that we are expecting an energy efficient building, not replacing Suggs with a replica of Mona Jane, which is not energy efficient. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We've had one go around. I would just like to say I agree with Dr. Hopes on this one. I think that, you know, what Mr. Minor and what the board voted on is in the contract for, I think, the construction. I'd have to go back and dig for it, and Harvard Jolly is a contract. But I, once again, do not believe that this is the way to achieve those things. And so for that, I don't support this motion. That being said, is there any further discussion on this?
Madam Chair, I just have a quick remark.
Yes, Vice Chair Kennedy.
Thank you. No, I just want to say that I think, you know, for $1.9 million, Harvard Jolly can come up with a design that includes the board-approved energy efficiency requirements that we have asked for. They've done a lot of work for the district. I have faith in our construction services department. I have faith in them, and therefore I'll vote yes. Thanks.
Madam Chair, may I
Is there any?
yes,
Mr.
make a comment? I think those who carefully have reviewed these two contracts, you know, that concerning, you know, Sugg Middle School will recognize that the requirements that this board adopted at its last meeting are put in and are required, you know, to be met. And so it was sort of suggested by comments that no, it wasn't, but it is in both of these contracts to meet the energy efficiency standards that this board has said will be in there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, for a response.
Dr. Hopes.
Yes, Mr. Minor, my comments relate to the justification that the construction department gave for giving these two, in this situation, this architect the contract because they had built Mona Jane and the project anticipated a replacement of Mona Jane. I've worked with Harvard Jolly for nearly 30 years on a myriad of projects. I have the utmost confidence in them. But merely slapping in a couple of requirements into this contract does not do it justice. Because if we went out and did a new procurement and looked for a bleeding edge architect that has designed some of the most efficient school buildings in this country, we may choose a different architect. I'm not saying that Harvard Jolly can't do the job. I'm saying that our construction department recommended to the superintendent awarding this contract to an entity based primarily on the fact that this architect had designed and had actually reused a design now I think 4 or more times for Mona Jane, and what was originally anticipated in this project was a replica of Mona Jane on the Suggs campus. I do not think we have done the taxpayers justice. I believe in the efforts that you and Mr. Kennedy have moved this forward towards, And I think we need to step back. This building is not going to be built in the next year. I think we need to step back and go with new requirements and find the best architect and the best team to build the prototype of a middle school for Manatee County, a design that we own. This contract does not provide for the school district of Manatee County, i.e. the board of the school district of Manatee County, to own the design of the Suggs replacement. That is a problem with this contract. I'm in agreement with your efforts. I'm trying to support your efforts. And in order to do that fully, in the best interest of the taxpayers, is to ensure that we enter into a contract that makes it absolutely clear that we own the design. I further believe that we should be doing a design build. We should hire an architect to design this prototype that meets the efficiency standards and the renewable energy standards that we've been talking about. And then once we have it designed, we go out and we contract with a contractor to build the building as designed by the architect and engineer. And the package that is before us today is the same type package that this district has operated under for nearly 20 years, and it does not deliver energy efficiency, and it does not deliver value for the taxpayers. Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask that you vote no on this agreement.
Okay. Is there any further debate?
Madam Chair, I have a question, actually.
Yes, Vice Chair Kennedy.
Thank you. I think Dr. Hopes brings up a good point there with the ownership piece. And I guess I have a question for the superintendent. Is that a change that could be made, that we add that clause to the contract that the school district would own the design, and it could be back in time for the April 14th meeting? That's my question. Thanks.
Well,
Madam Superintendent, can you answer that question?
I can't answer it. If the board approves the contract with that condition, then we put that in and let the vendor know that that's the expectation of the agreement.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we amend the contract to include a clause that states directly that the school district of Manatee County will own the design of that prototype school.
Is there a second? Okay, hearing none, that dies on the table.
Madam Chair, I'd like to speak to Mr. Kennedy's suggestion.
Hold on. Mr. Kennedy, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's all. Thanks.
Okay. Dr. Hopes.
I think that Mr. Kennedy brings up a good point. The reason why I believe his first comment of making the changes and negotiating with the architect and bringing it back to the board at our next meeting will allow us to ensure that the contract, and I believe Mr. Dye can find a construction attorney who can help us with it, because we're really talking about changing the dynamics into moving towards a design type build agreement. As you recall, Mr. Kennedy and my fellow board members, it is anticipated by the superintendent that we will need to, the next new school that we're going to need to build will be a middle school, probably in the northeast part of the county. That's why I believe it's very important that this board's priorities be incorporated into each of these agreements. I do have confidence. I have confidence in Harvard Jolly. I have confidence in our general counsel and possible attorneys to help assist, that we can have a satisfactory agreement that I can support, and hopefully other board members will support at the next meeting, which will result in us having a template for contracting with architectural and engineering services to design our own prototype. And also, should that prototype be desired by another district, we can then enter into an agreement with the architect so that we receive value for the investment we made in creating that prototype. So therefore, in alignment with Mr. Kennedy's first comments and questions to the superintendent, isn't to amend it tonight, but to table this and allow the superintendent and her staff and Mr. Dye and a consulting attorney to work with Harvard Jolly to negotiate an agreement which will ensure and make clear that the ownership of the design of this new school, the Suggs replacement, is owned by the school board of Manatee County. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, this is
Okay,
Reverend
I'd
Golden.
like to say that what I heard was a motion to table this to allow the superintendent, our board attorney, and a construction attorney to negotiate with the architect, Harvard Jolly, that the school board would own the plans for this upcoming middle school. Am I understanding your motion correctly?
That is my motion, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I have just a question. This is a motion to postpone?
No, he said it was a motion to table, which would mean it has to come up at the next meeting or it dies.
A motion to table must come up at the next meeting?
Yes. Or it dies.
Okay, I'll second that. I'll second that if it comes up. Well, I take that back. I'm not, I don't want this to die, but.
Well, that's the most expeditious way, is for us to take it up at the very next meeting, which puts the pressure on the administration and the attorneys and Harvard Jolly to get an agreement ready.
Madam Chair, may I address that?
Madam
Sure.
Chair, there's a motion to table that needs to be
Yeah,
voted
there's
up or down.
a motion to table, and I don't want to support a motion to table, because then if it's not back at the next meeting, this whole item is gone. So a motion that I would support would be a motion to postpone.
I'll change the motion to a motion to postpone.
To a date certain,
Okay.
April 14th.
So Dr. Hopes has
Yeah,
amended his
I will make the
motion
motion
to postpone.
I'll make the motion to postpone until April 14th. With the
Is there a
direction
second?
to the superintendent.
Mr. Kennedy, you second that?
I do.
Okay, so there's been a motion and a second to postpone this item in order to ask the superintendent, and our board attorney and a construction attorney to work with the architect, Harvard Jolly, to add a piece to this contract which will state that the school board will own the design of this school. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, we're all on the same page with that. Okay, so there's been a motion and there's been a second. And now we are on to debate, and Dr. Hopes, you were the motioner, so would you like to start us off?
Yes, ma'am. Members, I ask for your support of this motion. I think it's a positive step forward. It demonstrates our commitment to ensuring taxpayers get value. I believe that the outcome of this will be that on April 14th, we will have a contract which protects the district's interest and will provide for greater economic effectiveness when we build the second Suggs prototype replacement in Northeast, most likely Northeast Manatee County. So I ask your support of this motion. Thank you, members.
Okay. Vice Chair Kennedy, you seconded that. Do you have anything to add?
I do. I just want to be. I think we've got it straight, and I think we're doing something good here. I just want to be very clear that this to me, what I'm supporting here, is that this comes back in one way. If this can't be agreed upon, and I think it can, but I just want to be clear. I believe this should move forward on April 14th. I don't want to see us bickering and dithering with this project. We've got to move forward on April 14th.
No, I agree.
To support at the next meeting.
I agree.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Reverend Golden, do you have anything you'd like to add to
Thank you,
this
Madam.
Motion to postpone?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to be sure I understand the chronology here. These 8 items have been coming before us since before Christmas. And now we are supposed to believe that a 2-week postponement to allow an amendment that the persons who've already submitted their bids and contracts have not even seen nor considered. We are supposed to believe that that is going to make all of the difference in how we spend this $1.5 million, as opposed to, as has been said earlier, approving this tonight and asking, or at least attempting, to get the people whose contract we do have in hand. I'm reminded of a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. That what we really have here is another effort to postpone a decision that some of us don't really want to make anyway. And it has nothing to do with the design of this particular school or the design of schools in the future. What this is more akin to is that if we just cut it 1,000 times, it'll die. And so I'm not moved or persuaded that 2 more weeks or 3 more weeks is going to make that much of a difference, other than to give heart to those who don't want to see this done anyway. And quite honestly, I think it's disingenuous for us to have considered these 8 projects for months now, and then to be asked to reconsider it for 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks, so we can have ownership of the plans for this school. And the problem I'm having with that is I've also been listening to the last several months about our own construction services department, who prepared these papers, being castigated as not being prepared to move us into the future. Well, I've heard no mention of who is going to build this future school in Northeast Manatee County. Are we going to get rid of our construction services department, which we just spent the last meeting sitting here listening to many of the subcontractors and contractors that build these schools saying that we have a great construction services department. They do a good job. They're giving us good value. I'm just trying to figure out, why are we trying to continually tear this house down when it is well constructed and serves us well? And not just for this particular project, but for all of them on this page. It's almost as if we're just dead set on doing everything we can to delay this, in spite of all of the words we use about wanting to make progress. So I am absolutely committed to voting for this tonight, and voting against anything that takes us beyond tonight with any of these projects. These are not all of the projects that we've been discussing for the last several months. These are the ones that we have concluded, for one reason or another, need to move forward, and none of them have moved forward. And now we're trying to cut this one out so it doesn't move forward again because we want to own the plans. For what? First off, there's nothing that stops us from negotiating that later. Secondly, how are we wanting to own plans to put in the hands of a construction services department that some of the same people that don't want us to go forward anyway don't have a whole lot of confidence in? So, we keep doing this and doing this and doing this. I just don't see how there's any veracity to the arguments that are being raised. And Mr. Kennedy, I appreciate your wanting to compromise in an effort to accomplish something that there's no guarantee that we'll even be able to get it done in 2 weeks. There's no guarantee.
Can I address them?
There's no guarantee that the people who have
Let's make one round and then I'll come back to you. Is that okay?
There's no guarantee that the people that have already agreed to this are going to come back and say, oh, well, we'll agree to your owning the plans. Of course, there's nothing that says that they won't either. They may, but I think that they would appreciate some sense of stability from us, some sense of continuity from us. I almost feel like in this empty room, we're breaking confidence with the room that was full of contractors and subcontractors here about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago at our last meeting. So for that, Madam Chair, I appreciate the opportunity to speak, but I've heard nothing credible that changes my mind about why this ought to be pulled off of this list again.
Madam Chair, for a response.
Hold on. Mr. Minor has not had an
think-
opportunity to speak and respond, so let's let Mr. Minor have his time to speak, and then I can come back to both of you in the second go-around. But I'd like to allow
withdraw
Mr.
my
Minor to
second,
respond to this.
which would end this.
Okay. Okay. So then we're back to Dr. Hope's original motion, which was to postpone the approval of this contract and to allow the superintendent to work with Mr. Dye and a construction attorney to add in language about owning the plans. Mr. Kennedy has withdrawn his second. Is there a second to Mr. Kennedy or Dr. Hope's motion? Okay. Hearing none, then we're going to move forward as the original agenda item was put before us and motioned and seconded. Is there any further discussion? I feel like we've had a good amount of that about the original motion, which is the approval of Sug Middle School
Yes, Madam
replacement
Chair.
agreement between
Yes, Madam
Harvard
Chair.
Jolly.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Dr. Hope.
Members, this issue is not about commitment to replace SUGS. I believe we are all fully aware that SUGS needs to expand capacity. It needs a new building. We've discussed and debated energy efficiencies, and we have just recently in the past month or so realized that we are continuing to pay for plans that have been recycled for years and years and years. And 2 weeks in the time that we are in an unprecedented state of emergency and public health emergency is not going to make a difference regarding when this building will be completed. And it is irresponsible for us to spend $2 million of taxpayer money without attempting to enter into an agreement whereby this school board for $2 million owns the design that we are paying to be prepared. If you approve this agreement tonight, Harvard Jolly owns the design to this because they have already signed these agreements. And by your vote tonight, the chair will sign the agreement tomorrow, and you will have squandered $2 million of taxpayer money without giving it an opportunity. This item should have never been on this agenda. This meeting was called as a special meeting to approve the CAFR. Now we have before us tens of millions of dollars of expenditures when 3 of us are not even in the boardroom to discuss it. And Reverend Golden, if you'll stroke a check for half of that $2 million, I'll stroke a check for half of that $2 million, and I'll agree with you to ram this project forward to save 2 weeks. Because when I make a decision, I'm deciding under the basis when I spend my money to do it. I don't know when you last spent $2 million to design a building, but let me tell you something. If I'm going to spend $2 million of my money and I know I'm going to have to build that building again in 5 years, I'm going to own the designs of that building. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, this is Minor.
Mr. Minor.
I'd like to call the question the motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation that has been seconded.
Okay. Is there any objection to Mr. Minor's call to question?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to call the question. Mr. Minor, how do you vote?
I vote in favor of the superintendent's recommendation.
Reverend Golden.
I vote in favor of the superintendent's recommendation.
Dr. Hopes.
No.
Vice Chair Kennedy.
Madam Chair, because I think Reverend Golden hit the nail on the head. We can approve this tonight, and we can amend the contract later. And this is a local company who has done a lot of business with the school district. I vote yes.
Okay, and I vote no. So that is a 3-2 vote. It passes. Let's move on to item number 5. Madam Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I recommend the approval of Sugg Middle School replacement agreement between owner and Willis A. Smith Construction, pre-construction services in the amount of $177,100.
Minor moves for approving the superintendent's recommendation.
Okay, I hear a motion. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Second.
Okay, I think Reverend Golden beat you, Vice Chair Kennedy. So we have a motion and a second. I feel like we've kind of had the debate already before, but I'll go around. Mr. Minor, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think this is a fair contract. I think it serves the citizens of Manatee County very well. I think it's moving forward. I think we need to move forward with the speed that I think the superintendent thinks is very vital. And it contains, despite some suggestions otherwise, the efficiency, maybe unprecedented efficiency of energy, and it's a good contract that this community can be proud of, and I think will be, people will look at this district and this board for the leadership of dealing with energy efficiency and in building this new middle school. Thank you.
And Reverend Golden, you seconded it. Is there something you'd like to add?
Ditto.
Okay. Dr. Hopes.
Members, this is not a good contract. We should be designing an energy efficient building that we own, and then we should go out to a contractor to get a build contract, much like a design build, so we know exactly what it's going to cost to build the building that we're proposing to build. This is a bad decision. It's not the way to approach this project. And if you had the money to spend yourself, you probably wouldn't spend it this way. But if you would, then you have no business making this decision. I'm going to vote no. This is not the way to go about approving a $58 million project when we have presented design requirements that haven't even gone into the proposed building yet. And you can talk all you want about amending this contract later, but once the board approves these contracts, we no longer have the leverage. I'll be voting no. This is not the way to approve these projects. These projects should not have been put on a board agenda for a meeting on approving the CAFR when 3 members are not present, and the state and the CDC has directed that we not be in a room with more than 10 people. This is a disgrace. In Yiddish terms, it's a shanda, and we should not be approving this. 2 weeks will not make any difference in when this school opens, and it will not change the public's perception of our commitment to deliver a high-efficiency, state-of-the-art facility for the students and families of Sugg Middle. I'll be voting no on this project. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Vice Chair Kennedy.
I'm a yes.
Okay. That's it, huh? Okay. We went around, so I'm just going to add just a couple comments. There was a comment made about those items not being in the contract. Yes, those items are in the contract that the board approved. However, as Dr. Hopes has kind of already stated, as what I stated at the workshop, I don't think this is the way to best achieve those items. But they are here because the board made it clear as a whole that they wanted them here, and that is why they're here. But I am not in favor of this. With that, is there any further discussion on it? All right, hearing none, let's vote. Let's start with Reverend Golden. Mix it up a little. Reverend Golden, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Vice Chair Kennedy.
Still a yes.
Dr. Hopes.
No.
And I'm a no as well. But it passes 3-2. Let's move on to item number 6. Madam Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
Can I make a comment before that? I just got information that Harvard Jolly indicated that we could own the blueprints at no cost. They would sign whatever document was needed and agree to that.
Great. Thank you so much for getting that answer so fast.
Yes, ma'am.
On to item number 6.
Yes. I recommend the approval of Braden River Middle School renovations in addition. The agreement between owner and Long and Associates Architects Engineers, Inc. in the amount of $1,599,744.
I move the
Minor moves
approval.
for approval. What? I think that my colleague here wants to go ahead with that. Okay.
Well, yes. I move the approval of the recommendation of the superintendent.
Minor seconds. The
Okay,
motion.
so I have a motion and a second. Reverend Golden, would you like to start us off? Any discussion?
No comment.
Okay, Mr. Minor?
I think it's a very fair agreement serving the citizens of our community, and we're moving forward with approval of this, approving the superintendent's recommendation.
Vice Chair Kennedy?
Yes.
That's it? Okay. Dr. Hopes?
We hadn't addressed the architectural agreements. This project was on the list for a significant period of time. I don't appreciate these items coming on this agenda. I don't think it was necessary. I'm reluctantly going to, and well, I may not. I'm going to think through it. I don't like the process we're going through. I think it's a horrible way to make decisions with taxpayer money. And I have utmost respect for the architects. This school needs this project to move forward. And if we have students who aren't coming back till August, I'm all for getting a head start on things. But I just don't think this is a good process, and I'm disappointed in the superintendent for pushing these forward. Thank you.
All right. We've gone all the way around. I feel as if, as I stated before, that the board made it clear that they wanted to move forward with these projects. The superintendent was merely complying with what the majority of the board stated at the last workshop. At the last workshop, the board stated that they wanted to move forward with these things. In fact, the only thing that I said I didn't necessarily want to move forward with was SUG, but it seemed as if the majority of the board even wanted to move forward with SUG, which is why those things are here. And I understand that we're not all in the same room, but that doesn't change the work that we have to get done, whether we're all sitting in that room together or not. I'm still able to talk to everybody. I'm still able to hear everybody. And so our way of work might be changing, but our actual work is still the same. And this came from the board's desire to move these things forward in order to, as you said, support the needs of the schools and support our students. And you're right on track with that. That's exactly what I think we're all trying to do here, to make sure that these continue to move forward in order to best support our students in a school that was rated in poor quality in our facility index study. And so, with that, if there's no further discussion, I'm going to call a vote. Okay. Hearing no other discussion, let's start with Vice Chair Kennedy. How do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Hopes?
Yes.
Reverend Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Minor?
Yes.
All right, and I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously. Madam Superintendent, we're on to item number 7, Braden River Middle School, renovations in addition. Do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I recommend the approval of Braden River Middle School renovations in addition agreement between owner and NDC Construction Company, pre-construction services in the amount of $95,000.
Madam Chair,
Yes?
Reverend Golden, I move the approval of the superintendent's recommendation.
Madam Chair,
We've
this
got a
is,
motion,
okay.
and there's a second. Vice Chair Kennedy, was that you?
That was minor, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
No, either way, it's fine.
But if Mr. Kennedy does good on the seconds, that's fine with me.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second. Reverend Golden, you were the mover. Do you have any comment on this?
Yes, ma'am. I sat through most of the meeting and heard many of the objections about the format and the content and the context of what we're doing. I would like the record to reflect that in this room right now, there are only 7 people, and that in fact, to be in compliance, all 3 of you could be present to participate in this process. I respect your decision not to be here, but I really, really have a real problem with your disrespecting my decision to be here. Thank you.
Okay. And I believe Vice Chair Kennedy, you seconded that. Do you have any comment?
On the motion, no. Reverend Golden, no disrespect intended at all.
Mr. Minor.
I think it's a contract, with this, the recommendation of the superintendent's well-founded, and serves our community, and it's part of our moving forward as we have promised our community we would do.
Okay. Dr. Hopes.
Yes, Madam Chair. I will be voting in the affirmative for this. It's for pre-construction services. It's my expectation before we move into the next phase of the contract that we'll have language that we're comfortable with. And with regards to Mr. Reverend Golden, I'm not there out of consideration for you because you're at higher risk of contracting this illness than I am. And I've been in Tallahassee and other places. So, you know, I'm kind of like offended at that kind of comment. And if you think that you can't get this virus in that room, spaced out the way you are, you're going to find that, yes, you can. And the guidelines for individuals in your age bracket are you do not come in contact or be in a space with anyone other than someone you live with. That's the public health guideline. So don't kid yourself that you're somehow protected because there are only 7 people in the room. And that goes for everybody else out there in the public. You're going to find out as this is a moving target with regards to how you remain safe. But Madam Chair, I'm going to vote for this. This school does need to be renovated. I'm still not sure how much money we're going to have after the end of this economic impact. And it's my expectation that before we enter into the next phase of contract, that our general counsel and whoever other attorneys we bring in and our construction department's work group will have language that I can accept in moving these projects forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, everyone's had a turn to go around and kind of has, as Dr. Hopes has kind of reiterated, and this is something that I think that I talked to the superintendent about this morning or yesterday. I don't know. It's all becoming a blur. But we did talk about that when these items come back, that is when we have that contract in place that hopefully has already been worked through with the district. So I think that would be a reasonable expectation at this point. And I think that even at the workshop, we talked about that as being a reasonable expectation. Is there any further discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none. Let's vote. Let's start with Dr. Hopes.
Yes.
Vice Chair Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Reverend Golden.
Fearlessly and courageously, yes.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. It is that passes unanimously. Madam Superintendent, we're on to item number 8, approval of Palmetto High School campus drainage improvements. Do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I recommend the approval of Palmetto High School campus drainage improvements, agreement between owner and Gilbane Building Company, pre-construction services, in the amount of $3,213.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second. Reverend Golden.
Reverend Golden seconded. Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Vice Chair Kennedy, you made the motion. Would you like to start us off? Any comment?
No, ma'am.
Reverend Golden,
No, ma'am.
Mr. Minor,
Well, my comment is there's so much involved with addressing this 50-year-old problem of flooding on the Palmetto High School campus. I am looking forward to what Gilbane has to say, and their plans for making sure that this never occurs again. The flooding that is there. I know we're not going to be. This is not anticipated to be the complete answer, but I have made requests of the administration for information that to help this board understand the extent to which there has been a continuing problem over the last several decades, and I hope that will be provided within the next couple of weeks to the board to fully understand that this is a campus-wide problem that I think the people of Palmetto deserve to be embraced and solved. Thank you very much.
okay, thank you. Dr. Hoax, do you have any comments?
Yes, I have a question for the superintendent. Madam Superintendent, has the civil engineer produced detailed plans for what needs to be constructed to address the drainage problem at Palmetto?
Superintendent, can you respond to that?
I'm going to defer that to Ms. Drager. We can get her on the line. So if you'll just give me a second, we'll get her on the phone.
Okay, while you're doing that, let me express my concerns. First of all, we're hiring a national construction firm for a relatively small contract. Go ahead and get her on the phone. For a relatively small contract to do provide pre-construction services. And I will tell you that in this situation where we had a civil engineer that identified the problem and proposed various solutions, the normal course for this would be to hire the engineer first, just like we're hiring an architect for these other projects, and have the engineer design what needs to be done, and then hire a construction firm to do the work. The second rule of thumb in this type of contracting is you do not hire national construction firms for a project of this small size and scope because it's going to cost you more. And this needs to be addressed. This board took affirmative action in addressing the problem. I question why we're giving a contract to a company that is based in Rhode Island, and this district has given them over $120 million worth of work in the past couple of years. And I find it hard to believe that we don't have a local firm that can do the work that will be designed by hopefully a local engineering firm. And this is not the way to approach a project like this. I'm disappointed that we would not give this contract to a local firm that could do the work. I'm disappointed that we are not hiring the engineer to design the plan and negotiate with SwiftMud on it. This is not the way to approach this, and I really don't appreciate giving a company that's based out of state this contract when we have local contractors that can do this work who are going to be hurting because of the economic impact of the coronavirus on our local economy. I really have a problem with it. And it has nothing to do with the need that Palmetto has. This is not a good way to handle the public's money.
My understanding is we're waiting for Ms. Drager to call in.
She's, I believe, on the line to answer the question.
Jane, are you here?
I'm here. Gregor, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, I believe the questions were revolved around the engineer's plans, and it sounds as if the engineer in this type of situation is typically hired in order to create a plan for which then a construction company would complete. And I believe Dr. Hopes' questions revolved around that. Am I understanding that correct, Dr. Hopes?
Yes, ma'am. Has the civil engineer designed the detailed solution that this contractor is being hired to construct?
I can't
Gregor,
hear
can
you
you
very
answer
well,
that?
but I will tell you that the civil engineer is Foley and Cleric in Palmetto. They were actually the firm that presented to the board on January 17th all of the options for Palmetto High drainage. I think there were about 12 or 15 options, and their efficacy was rated, very good, will correct the problem in this area, probably not so good. And from that meeting, we were told to explore like 4 of those options to create what we were going to call an immediate drainage fix that we wanted to try to get done this summer. We've engaged Foley Cleric to do that. They've met with Swift Mud. That process is already taking place. This company, Gilbane, was the last contractor to work comprehensively on the Palmetto High campus, so they have familiarity with it. They had some of the record drawings from work that had been done there. They are on our board-approved continuing contracts list, so it made sense to do that. In addition, Gilbane did the pricing for that board workshop at no cost. So those are the reasons that they were selected to do this small project for the summer.
Okay, for a question, Madam Chair.
Yes, Dr. Hopes.
What was the date of the last time Gilbane did work on the Palmetto campus?
If you give me a minute, I can look that up for you.
Ballpark it. Last year, year before last, 10 years ago, 5 years ago?
I think 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay, so that really has nothing to do with this, all right? I mean, Commissioner Priscilla Trace knows Palmetto High School. She's been telling us about this problem since I got to Manatee County. And so is there not a local contractor that's not based in Rhode Island? Is there not a local contractor that this work could be given to instead of a contractor that we've given over $120 million to in the past few years?
Well, it seems like
highly unusual,
penalizing them
highly
for having
unusual,
successfully completed
highly unusual
our $90 million high
a
school.
contract of this size and scope.
We have 13 contractors on that approved list. We're currently using 9 of them. I mean, we do try to spread the work around. And Gilbane has an office, a permanent office in Sarasota.
They're not, Gilbane is not a Florida-based company. They are in Rhode Island. We are giving a small project to a national construction firm over and above local companies that are more than capable of doing this work. I have not heard sound justification for why we are using Gilbane on such a small project over and above a local company who doesn't have an office out of state.
Can we call the question?
So I want to know, my question is,
I'm sorry, there was a call to question.
why?
Hold on, Dr. Hopes. There was a call to question. Seeing as there sounds like there will be some opposition to the call to question, I'm going to call a vote. It has to be a supermajority. Unfortunately, according to my TV right now, Reverend Golden has stepped out of the room. So I hope he comes back. But it has to be a...
Madam Chair, I'll withdraw that. I'm sorry. I'll withdraw that.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Hopes, do you have another question?
Members, I really believe this work should be given to a local contractor. I suspect Gilbane is wanting to do this work because Gilbane wants to put themselves in a position with the construction department where they would get the contract to do the overall project of Palmetto. This makes no economic sense otherwise for a company of the size and scope of Gilbane to do it. I think in the state of the economy that we are in right now, we need to be given as much work as we can to our local construction companies. And Gilbane was local, they were bought out, and they moved to Rhode Island. This is not a local company. And I think at this state that we are in, we need to be asking our construction department to be able to justify not why they give a company the contract, they should justify why we are not giving it to a more local company. And I ask you to vote this down and ask the construction department to come back to us on the next meeting and give us a contract with a local construction company that can use this work, and all that money will stay in our community and not go out of state. Thank you, members, for your consideration. 2 weeks. 2 weeks is not going to make any difference on this project, I can assure you. I think we need to give it to a local company.
Ms. Drager, I think we've gone around, so I have a couple questions for you now that you're on the line. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. The Gilbane, when they subcontract out the work, do they typically hire local people and local companies to subcontract out?
Absolutely. Particularly in this case, it will be site work. Most site work is done by local companies.
Right. Okay. I thought so, but I wanted to make sure I understood properly. And did I understand correctly that there are plans, and the engineer has been talking with SwiftMud, that those were some of the other concerns that were brought up? Did I understand you correctly on that?
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
The engineer has created plans and has been talking with SwiftMud. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. And when you decide to put out to bid the building that will replace a bunch of buildings on Palmetto's, I would call that central corridor, you will put that out to bid, and any company that chooses to enter into that you'll accept any company that can put out to, I guess, how do I say this? When you put out your RFQ, you will accept any company's information, correct? And interview companies, correct?
Absolutely. We would be required by law, due to the size of that project, to do a complete selection process for both the design professional and the contractor.
Okay. So just because Gilbane does this does not guarantee them or even give them a leg up on that building. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct. Absolutely not.
Okay. Okay. I think that's all of my questions. Is there any further discussion on this item?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay,
I
Dr.
appreciate your line of questioning, but Ms. Drager, as much as I appreciate her insight and her hard work, just contradicted you, because she said that the reason why she moved to give this contract to Gilbane was because they did the work at work at Palmetto on the auditorium, and that's a mindset that we got to get over. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I agree with that, Dr. Hopes. Thank you. Okay, if there's no other comments, then I'm going to call the question. Thank you very much, Ms. Drager.
No worries.
I'm gonna call a vote. We'll start with Vice Chair Kennedy. How do you vote?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Dr. Hopes.
No.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Reverend Golden.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So it passes 4-1 with Dr. Hopes dissenting. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 9, and this is really a board item. I think it's just because we need to grant the superintendent the approval to move forward with this. You know, she in an emergency had to work to purchase more hotspots before they were all taken up. And so I'm really looking for a motion from the board to approve the emergency purchase of 400 hotspots with service not to exceed $102,000.
So move.
Seconded by Minor.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Reverend Golden, do you have any discussion?
No, I just want to thank the superintendent for putting us literally at the very top of the list of school boards that are responding in a way that is helpful to the community, that maintains as much quality as we can maintain in delivering online teaching, that her staff and the educators have embraced, and this is only going to make it possible for more children to get the services that they need during this time of crisis.
Gina Messenger
is now in the conference.
I got disconnected. Am I connected now?
You're back.
Yeah, apparently we're running out of time on our phone system.
On our what?
I'm just kidding.
I have, well, you know, I live out in Parrish, so we have a lot of cows, but we don't have a lot of cell towers, so I apologize on that.
That's all right. Do you want me to say
Approve one additional hotspot for the chairman.
Do you want me to say it all over again?
I hear moving. I just don't always get signal. I'm so sorry, Reverend Golden. Could you just give a synopsis of what you had said?
I think we need this. I think it is very helpful, and I think it is a testament to the leadership of the district.
Thank you very much. And I believe the second was Mr. Minor. Mr. Minor, do you have anything to add?
I think that board member I do want to add something to it. I think that what we're talking about here is, you know, communication in emergency situations, and I think I just kind of echo the idea that making it, you know, better communications is a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Kennedy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thanks, Gina. Really quick. I just want to thank the superintendent for getting this rolled out so quickly, in addition to the other things she and the team have been working on, because, you know, our esteemed Commissioner of Education found it wise to tell 3 million school students in Florida that they need to transition to online education in 2 weeks. And so that really put our leadership team and our teachers and staff behind the 8 ball. And I appreciate the superintendent doing this. Because of this, my concern when this went down was that, you know, how are students in poverty, how are students who don't have electronics or internet access in their home going to be able to keep up? And I still have concerns about those children, those students, but this will go a long way to at least keep them connected to their teachers and to their school. And I fully support this, and I thank the superintendent and Mr. Scott Hansen for making this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hope?
Yes, and I just wanted to add to that not only in addition to directing to ensure that students continue learning through this unprecedented pandemic, the commissioner and the governor also provided for the redirection of funds to pay for this. So I do commend the superintendent and Scott Hansen they were on top of this early on, and I do believe we have shown leadership as a district in the state in moving to an online platform. But this was not one of those unfunded mandates. The commissioner, the governor, and even the legislature are doing the best that they can to free up monies from other areas to ensure that it goes into technology to be able to deliver as much content and learning opportunities to everyone, regardless of their situation. We're in the situation we're in. There's nothing we can do about it. We should be grateful that we're ahead of most other districts in the state. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, and everybody's had their turn. I would just like to reiterate a thank you to our superintendent and her forethought and her grit through this entire event. And I would also like to reiterate to even Mr. Kennedy, I share his concerns, working on a Title I school, I totally get it. There's a lot of kids that don't have access, but Messenger
has left the conference.
Are you serious?
We got you. Gina, we can hear you.
That's so weird. Did you hear it kick me out?
I did, but you're still here. Are you a ghost?
I'm still here. This is such a fun experiment tonight. Anyways, I was just going to say that a lot of students have access to get Spectrum for free, and they should really try to utilize that as much as possible, because that's going to be faster than probably these hotspots are. So they should really try to utilize that if they can. And I know that after talking to the superintendent, they have even more plans to make Wi-Fi accessible to our students. So I really have a lot of faith in what she's doing. She's putting a lot of thought into it. She's putting a lot of time into it, and I really appreciate that. And if there's no other discussion, I'd like to vote.
Madam Chair, I would like to say one other thing.
Yes.
I want to thank the superintendent for getting the equipment that's necessary to create 400 hotspots. But before we leave this area, I want to also thank the faith fellowships in Manatee County that have already stepped up to the plate to help us with the feeding problems that we have with the children who will not be in school, but who are also being asked to help us to locate these 400 hotspots. We are expecting that we're going to need to be able to use the parking areas in at least 25 to 30 churches around the community that will help us to deliver these online learning experiences to those underserved and least served populations. So I want to thank the superintendent for embracing and involving faith fellowships across the county. And I want to thank those faith fellowships that are listening now. We will be meeting online tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock to not only discuss how we can be more effective and more efficient in terms of the feeding, which is not on this agenda, but also in terms of how to best utilize these 400 hotspots so that we can serve every child in Manatee County. And I wanted to say that because I'm noticing that we don't have any room for board member comment on this agenda, and I just wanted to make sure that word got out. Our meeting tomorrow morning is still on at 10. The call-in information is online, and we will be talking not only about feeding children, feeding the bodies of children, but we were talking about making sure that their minds are still fed with the quality educators and support staff and administration that we have here in the school district. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, we're going to vote. I'll start with Reverend Golden. How do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Minor?
Minor votes yes.
Vice Chair Kennedy?
Yes.
Dr. Hopes?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so that passes unanimously. Okay, I'm going to move on to our items that got added to our agenda. The first one was about approval of pre-K best and brightest to be funded, I believe, from our general funds. I believe that was part of the motion, the agenda amendment. Is there a motion for that?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the allocation for Best and Brightest this year include our pre-K personnel, and I'm understanding that that's going to cost about $90,000 out of the general fund.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay. I just want to point out one thing before we begin discussion. This money cannot come from the allocation that we were given by the state. That is an audit finding. So I just want the board to consider that this cannot come from that allocation. And the wording sounds as if that is that allocation. It would have to come from our general fund. It cannot come from the Best and Brightest allocation. Am I understanding your motion correctly?
No, Madam Chair, I am not making a motion that is destined to fail. I want the money for pre-K teachers to come from the general funds, but according to the standards, that money is awarded for K through 12 teachers.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure that we had the clarity there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Let's start with discussion. You were the mover. Reverend Golden, would you like to start us off?
No, I just think that this is part of a larger discussion about including pre-K educators across the state in the definition of what constitutes public education. And this is just a small step in the direction of saying that we here in Manatee County affirm that if you're an educator and you're involved in public education, you ought to have all of the benefits at pre-K that you would get if you were just teaching kindergarten. Fair is fair, and these educators have been treated unfairly long enough. It is more than an economic argument. It is an argument for the fact that we believe that our early childhood education is the most crucial and critical part of the overall public education process for the first 12 years. And so I'm happy to bring this up, and I'm hoping that my fellow board members will agree in principle that everybody ought to share and share alike in the burdens and in the benefits. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Vice Chair Kennedy, I believe you were the seconder. Do you have anything to add?
I sure do. I support this, and I appreciate Reverend Golden bringing the motion. And I want to state first, this is the last time we have to do this because Best and Brightest is now dead. It didn't come out of this legislative session. So this scheme, this scam to work around school boards and our negotiating, our collective bargaining power is finally over. I do find it ironic that as soon as Richard Corcoran leaves the legislature, our new governor says, let's increase teacher pay to the tune of $500 million, and Best and Brightest is gone. So, board members, this is the last time we have to do this, and for all the reasons that Reverend Golden said, we should share the success and share the pain. And to be clear, and Reverend Golden made it clear on his second pass through, is that the pre-K staff that will be rewarded are in compliance with the the details and particulars of the K through 12 people who qualify for Best and Brightest. Thank you.
Dr. Hopes, do you have a comment to add to this?
I have both a comment and a question. My question is, in this motion, it's following the guidelines for Best and Brightest, which excluded a number of our schools this year. Is that correct, Madam Superintendent?
Yes, it is.
So with that, how many pre-K teachers are not going to benefit from this because they are not at a school which was allowed to participate in Best and Brightest regardless of the effectiveness of that pre-K teacher?
I do not have that information with me. I can get it for you and email it to you tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, members, I'm going to support this. I think the problem I have with it is I think all of our board, all of our certified pre-K teachers, should receive. Mr. Reverend Gold, aren't you glad I'm not there? My concern is that it's only going to touch a limited number of pre-K teachers, and I think our pre-K teachers, especially those that meet the qualifications, are certified teachers, deserve this. As Mr. Kennedy mentioned, this is the last year, but don't kid yourself, Mr. Kennedy. Richard Corcoran is driving education policy in the state, pre-K all the way through PhDs. So don't think because he left the legislature he's not on board with this. He's driving education policy in the state, and I can tell you that from firsthand knowledge. I'm going to support this. I do think that now with this best and brightest going away, as we move forward into negotiations next year, we need to ensure that we're clear as a board of the value that we place on our pre-K teachers, because it's through their efforts and their colleagues that we're going to move the needle with success of our students. So I'm going to support this. I appreciate this coming up, but I think it falls short because I think we have a number of teachers, who deserve some financial recognition for the work that they do every day. But we've got to deal with the lot that's been handed to us, and therefore I'll support it. I would prefer that we not be doing it now and wait to see what happens to us financially in the beginning of the next year. But since it's before us, I'll go along with it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Minor, do you have anything to add?
No, I support and appreciate the ideas behind this, and I'll be voting yes. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely, I support this. I also agree with Dr. Hopes. The timing was the part that was so difficult, but I hope that either superintendent finds it in the budget this year or she plans for it in the following year, fiscal year, so that we can make sure this is done for our pre-K teachers. They deserve it. And if there's no other discussion, let's vote. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I don't hear any. Okay, let's start with Vice Chair Kennedy. How do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Hopes?
Yes.
Reverend Golden?
Yes.
Mr. Minor?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so that passes unanimously. Okay, let's move on to our next item. It was an item brought forward by Mr. Minor about Horizon Supplies. Is there a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we approve a request for the superintendent before the return of school of all of $2,000, probably the least amount of money we've been talking about this evening, with $1,800 of it going to the main campus of Horizons and $200 for the Harley campus of Horizons, and that the money be used for the kind of, for kind of restroom related, toilet paper, things like that. Paper also, for sanitizers, and my understanding is that their availability of, this is in addition to that, of paper for teachers, for making copies that should be paid by the district, is requiring teachers to take it out of their own funds. Additionally, the cleaning supplies for these schools is very lacking, and I'm not putting the blame on anyone, particularly the superintendent, but I think based upon the information that comes to me, there's a breakdown in the chain of information, from the teachers up to the school board, and that's why I'm asking this rather minimal sum of $2,000 be allocated for these items to show our appreciation, particularly to the teachers, and maybe the most, well, certainly one of the most difficult places to be teaching, and they are all highly dedicated to working with students who have challenged backgrounds and challenged behavior problems, and I think this is maybe the least we can do, but we should do it tonight to show our appreciation. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
I will second that.
Okay, Mr. Kennedy has usurped my desire to be the second, but I still have a point of clarification. I think that
I'll withdraw.
No, it's okay. But I think that the maker of the motion said a different thing in the motion than we said when we added it to the agenda. You said that you wanted 1,800 of the 2,000 to go to one campus,
Yes.
and the remaining 200 to go to the other.
Yes.
When we were discussing this earlier, you wanted 80% to go to one campus and 20% to the other, which would be a $1,600, $400 split.
Well, I probably mischaracterized in the math, but my request, I'll clarify here, is 200 to go to the Harley campus and 1,800 to the main campus.
So you want 90% to go
Yes.
to the main campus and
Yes,
10% to
I apologize for my math breakdown there.
No.
Okay, but thank you for pointing that out.
Well, no, I just know you know more about this than any of the others of us in
Okay.
terms of bringing it forward. So I just want to make sure we don't shortchange one campus $200.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's been a motion. Is there a second?
I think it was seconded by,
It was
He
seconded by
withdrew
Mr.
his
Kennedy.
second.
by Mr.
I'll second it again.
Okay, Vice Chair Kennedy has seconded it, so there has been a motion and a second. Mr. Minor, is there anything you were the mover, or is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think I've said enough. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair Kennedy, is there anything else you would like to add?
No,
Mr.
I think
Kennedy,
I
are
said,
you?
sorry, I was on mute again. I was talking.
Oh,
I was
okay.
talking to myself in my living room. No, I think I said everything I needed to when we added this to the agenda, so I will support it. Thanks.
Okay, Dr. Hopes.
Members, this is a horrible precedent. I mean, the mere fact that you can get emails from teachers at one school and feel that it cannot be handled in private with the superintendent, that you have to make a motion to allocate $2,000 split among two schools for toilet paper, copy paper, and wipes and sanitizer and disinfectant is a horrible precedent, and it opens up a door. We are a board that employs a superintendent. We've charged her with the responsibilities of using the resources provided to her. We have no business getting down to this. This isn't even level of the weeds. I mean, we're getting down into the seed underneath the soil. It's just a bad precedent, and I hope that that this is not an issue that hasn't already been committed and given the attention by the superintendent. But this board has no business allocating $2,000 to two schools for toilet paper and copy paper. If you want to pass a motion to direct the superintendent to address the issue, I can support that. If that is where we have gotten to with regards to management of this district. But for this board to take up this time, amend the agenda to allocate $2,000 to one of our schools to ensure that they get toilet paper, wipes, sanitizer, and copy paper is way outside of our scope. So with that, I'm not going to support this. I think it's a bad precedent. I hope these people, and I may go to the school. No, I won't go to the school tomorrow. Hopefully we don't even have students there. But we're going to allocate $2,000 to buy toilet paper for people who aren't even there. I think this is just a bad motion. It sets a bad precedent. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, who are these people? I want to know who these people are. I want to ask Dr. Hopes to tell us who these people are.
Excuse me?
I want you to tell us who these people are.
The students and the staff and whoever felt that they had to come to the board, and the board felt that they had to pass a motion to allocate $2,000 in resources to buy toilet paper and sanitizer. If a board member got a request from a teacher or a staff member or a parent at that school, the appropriate action is to take it to the superintendent and give her the opportunity to address it, not to consume a governing body's time in a board meeting to allocate such a minuscule amount of money in the overall budget. We should not be directly getting involved at that level other than to be informed of the problem and place it on the superintendent's responsibility to address it if it's a deficiency.
Dr. Hope?
We should not be dealing at this level of the weeds with regards to management of the district.
Madam Chair, our superintendent has been busy trying to preserve an educational system that is under attack by an invisible enemy. She has a whole lot more on her mind than to have to deal with a problem like this. On the other hand, we as board members are expected to pay attention to the least of these. I would appreciate, sir, I didn't cut you off, and don't you cut me off.
Let him finish. Dr. Hopes, let him finish, please.
I vote no. Goodbye. Dr. Hopes
has left the conference.
Okay.
Which is kind of
Golden, would you like to
the way we are. Yeah. That says an awful lot.
Okay, we're not going to speak ill of somebody that's not with us.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Finish whatever you'd like to say about this.
I'm just concerned. I appreciate the fact that we have a board member who is concerned with these people and their little issues. And I would think that the kind of superintendent that we have would appreciate having this brought up even in public. She has nothing to be ashamed of. She hasn't done anything lax or negligent. And all this posturing in these kinds of times is unseemly and unnecessary. So I'll be supporting this. I don't think it sets any precedent because, quite honestly, I think the superintendent can deal with the staff and the educators at that place. They're under her jurisdiction. So no, I'm not going to castigate a fellow board member for bringing up something that happened to have fell through the cracks. So thank you, Mr. Attorney Minor.
Madam Chair, this is Minor. Can I call the question? Are you still on?
I haven't had the opportunity to make a comment.
Oh, okay,
Can I make
good.
a comment?
Please.
And then we can vote?
Neither have I.
Okay.
I thought I called on you, Vice Chair Kennedy. Would you like to add more?
No, go ahead, Gina. That's okay. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I really do think this is micromanaging. Anytime I ever get a comment from a concerned employee, a concerned community member, via email, phone call, run into them at Publix, I speak to the superintendent about it. And to put something on an agenda like this that she didn't know anything about, that you didn't give her the opportunity to correct, I really think is not very fair to the district. I think that if you had sat down with her, she would have made sure that this was done, and it should never have been done this way. I don't doubt that she would have given them whatever they needed, but I really think that this is just truly the wrong way to do it, and I don't think this is very fair to her because she didn't even know. I would never
is now in the conference.
try to do that. I don't know who we just got.
It's Charlie. It's Charlie back.
Oh,
I just
okay.
referred to myself in the third person. Excuse me. I'm back.
Okay. So I'm not in favor of this. and it's not that I'm not in favor of the school getting these supplies, but I am not in favor of doing this in this way. It's not fair to her. I think it's micromanaging. I don't think that she was given an opportunity to even figure out what's happened. And that's, to me, this doing it in this way is just not okay in any way, shape, or form. This is just not the right way to handle this. If she did not had not responded, had not done anything about it, if it had been an ongoing issue, then yes, then I'd say let's bring it before the board. Let's have this conversation. But that's not what happened here. So I am not in favor of this. Is there any further discussion? I know, Vice Chair Kennedy, you said you felt like you had to add something. Is there something else you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, just really quick if I could. I just
Sure.
want to provide a little bit of background. The email in question, it came to all of us. It came to the board members only, not to the superintendent, on Tuesday, March 10th. Mm-hmm. It came from Stephen Makovitz, who has been a teacher at Horizons for a long time. He's been a teacher in the district for an even longer time. And I think, I mean, all of your reservations I hear, but I think this is just a kind of a gesture of goodwill. And I think had the superintendent, if this were brought to the superintendent, she would have, just made it happen immediately. But I appreciate Mr. Minor kind of just making this gesture of goodwill. And frankly, I wish we would hear from people in the district more, like employees, community members. You know what? In some, we really don't get that much email. We don't hear from people that much. And so, I realize that there is a leadership structure to the district, but as a board member, hearing from people helps me do my job better. It helps me make better decisions, and I want to talk about one of them for a minute or two at the end of the meeting. But so Gina and Dr. Hope is now gone, unfortunately. I don't know if we're beneath him, it's time, but I get your reservations, but I think this is just kind of an olive branch of goodwill, and I will support it. And I appreciate Mr. Minor bringing it forward. Thanks.
Madam Chair.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Reverend Golden.
Yes, ma'am. And let me. I'm so glad that that Mr. Kennedy pointed it out. We all got that. The superintendent didn't. So we would rather have ignored it, not brought it up, and then have her blindsided as being someone that did not support her teachers. The human relationships are very, very, very complex. And I've worked here with you all now for a year or better. And I have yet to see any of us just turn our backs on anybody. Shut our hearts and shut our ears, shut our eyes up, and just say, I don't want to hear anymore. I'm done. That's not who we are. We are better than that. And I don't believe that the superintendent, had she been informed, would have taken no action. And I'm not going to presume to say that this board member could have or should have taken another tack to inform her. This was done this way. I'm not quite so sure, in the interest of all of these health concerns that we have, that he had any way to even communicate with her. I don't think he had any way to do that, except to come down here and be a part of this meeting. Don't know whether it even came up when he met with her, as all of us do. But I do know one thing, that that it's before us, and for us to do nothing is worse than anything else we could do.
Has left the conference.
Madam Chair, it's Doug Wagner. My hand's up. I know you can't see me because I'm in the...
Yes, I was just informed via email that you wanted to speak. What would you like to add to the conversation, Mr. Wagner?
Very good. And I did want to follow up because we do have operations staff, too, that's very concerned when they heard this tonight. And so we've had communication as I'm sitting here, and our supervisor of custodians, Mr. Moore, was not aware of this. We do have plenty of cleaning supplies into our warehouse, and we can surely deploy what's needed, and he'll work with his custodians at the school to make sure that we have what's needed at the school if there is a shortage, but was not aware of it. And Mr. Henson, who's our director of maintenance and operation, also was in communication with the principal while we're sitting here. And again, that's something that if we're short supplies, we do have a process for that, and we'll make sure that they have what's needed. The issue very well could be funds for printing. We have paper in the warehouse as well if people are short on paper, but it very well may be funds for printing. And we'll work with him in the morning, the principal, to make sure, and the school administration to make sure that those are covered. Our bottom line is that we're here to support our schools. Maintenance and operations, we're here to support our schools. And I stand behind our employees, and if there is a shortage or we're not getting out there, hold me accountable for that. But I really stand behind them, and bringing these to our attention, we'll make sure they'll be addressed. But I'm not sure that it was followed in the processes that we have set up right now to be able to know about this. But we'll surely make sure it's corrected. I definitely want to assure you on that. So it may be more than 2,000, it may be less. We spent quite a bit of money when this whole health issue came apart, and we pushed schools lots of hand sanitizer, lots of cleaning supplies, and there was no charge for that. That's something we paid for from the district level, and we're here to support our schools. So I just want to make sure everyone knows that.
Madam Chair?
Oh, sorry.
Madam Chair,
Reverend Golden.
Yes, I think that the issue before us now is not what has happened, but what will happen from now on. And I'm in complete agreement with what everybody says. What will happen from now on, I'm sure, will not result in this. Not evermore. And whether we go forward with this, I think, is in the hands of the person that made the motion, who I think simply wanted to tell somebody that we have a problem. I got the message, I didn't say anything. Dr. Hopes got the message, he didn't say anything. The chair got the message, she didn't say anything. And the vice chair got the message, he didn't say anything. And I just refuse to castigate the board member who brought it up. Now that he's brought it up, two things are going to happen. We're going to do something about that, which I've already heard is going to be done, and we're going to make sure that this never happens again, not with this principal or any other principal, because this is an embarrassment. And that's not what we're about, trying to make people look bad or do anything wrong. So I'm going to, unless the maker of the motion withdraws the motion, I'm going to support it. If he withdraws it in deference to all that he has heard tonight, in an effort to bring harmony and unity to the district, I will not object to that.
Madam Chair, may I
Mr.
speak?
Kennedy, I know you had something else you wanted to add.
I do, real quick. I just wanted to address what Doug said. Doug, no one, and to the superintendent, no one did anything wrong here. This is just a case of, Steve has advocated for his school many times in the 5 years I've been on the board. And I think for Mr. Minor and I responded to Steve when we got that email on March 10th. And I think, based on what's been going on, it kind of got lost after coronavirus exploded. But nobody did anything wrong here. This was just a teacher who was reaching out again to the board to say, like, and I think Mr. Minor and I think everybody empathizes with this. Horizons is a really hard place to practice. I have so much respect for those employees because a lot of people who work in the district couldn't cut it at Horizons. And Steve, as long as I've been on the board, has been always giving gentle reminders to the board, hey, don't forget about Horizons. Don't forget about us. Don't forget about us. And this is just a way to show him that we are not forgetting about him in a very small way. That was all. So nothing broke down here. This is not a district problem. This is this is a good thing. It's just a sign of goodwill, like I said before. Thanks.
Madam Chair, may I have a few words?
Absolutely.
This is Minor.
Mr. Minor.
Earlier this evening, for a group of teachers, pre-K teachers, we legislated to say that we want to take out of our general fund, salaries that, as though they were teachers who weren't pre-K. Now, I didn't hear anybody arguing that, well, it shouldn't be done because that's getting into the weeds, and it's asking the superintendent to do something that is really within administration. We did it because, for a group of teachers, all of us felt it was the right thing to do. They should be given that dignity of the salaries. It wasn't directed toward putting a negative light on our superintendent. And this is not intended that way either. It's to bring to focus what I believe I said earlier. It's a breakdown in the communication from the teachers, up to us. And so we got, at least the board members got a letter which I said, this shouldn't be going on in our school district. And I did try to reach the superintendent. And I'm not really current in reviewing all of the emails that I get. And that's my fault. But when I did get it, and when I did read it this afternoon, I said, this is not right. And I did try to reach you. And I thought it was important that we address this before we go back to school, and before the kids go back to these schools. I felt that was the right thing to do. Madam Chair, you can disagree with me, and I respect you very much, but I think this community would like us to address the situation and to cry out for help. And that's why I made the motion. I appreciate the support that's been reflected here. I appreciate that our Deputy Superintendent Wagner, is giving this the attention, and it should. And that's why we're here in a board and we meet in the public. And there are a lot of ways to do things. Sometimes the ways to do things is limited by time, and this certainly was. And I hope that there will be auditing. I think there's, is there a breakdown because those above the teachers are not requesting the money and saying, we got a problem here? Is it a matter of not good communication between teachers and staff there? Or, why did it break down? I'm convinced it did break down, and it shouldn't break down. And we should be, doing what we can to help these teachers in the most difficult positions and not making it more difficult by not making sure that they have what they need. And I don't think we've done what we needed to do to make sure they get what they need. And I hope this discussion tonight and the motion will see that that is done better. And this is very little money considering what we've already talked about tonight.
Is now in the conference.
And so I appreciate the support for the motion. And I do think their superintendent's doing a terrific job. I don't think there's anyone in this room or anywhere who appreciates, the great job that she is doing. And I don't blame her for this, but I'm bringing, to attention the best I could a need for really auditing to make sure that these teachers get everything that they need, to best serve, difficult kids that they're working with. Madam Chairman, thank you very much for allowing me to share my remarks.
Sure. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to call a vote to fund Horizons for it's on it as a toiletries, paper, and other sanitizing items in the amount of $2,000, with 90% going to Horizons main campus and 10% going to the Harley site. And with that, I'll start with Reverend Golden. How do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Minor?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Dr. Hopes, have you joined us?
Yes, I have. No, I have every confidence in Deputy Superintendent Wagner and Superintendent Saunders to ensure that those schools and those teachers and those students have what they need? No.
And I'm a no as well for the reasons I've already stated. It passes 3-2. And with that, I believe we have concluded our agenda. I would like to remind the public, I don't think there's any public comment in our emails, but I'd like to remind the public that they can email us their public comment on agenda items. With that, I am going to adjourn the meeting. Is there any other? Yes, Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I could, I just want to address something real quick. And it relates back to what I just said about input from our employees. And over the weekend, I'll be as brief as I can. I won't be long. But over the weekend, in my frustration over the response of the federal and state government to the crisis we now find ourselves in, I sent an email to the superintendent to let her know that I wanted to make a motion. I was planning to make a motion at this meeting that we suspend all operations of the district until April 14th. And that when the board meet on April 14th, we make a decision about what we're going to do next, because kids were scheduled to come back on April 15th. But starting on Monday morning, I began to talk to people around the district that I know and whose opinions I trust. And in the conversations with probably 25 people within the district, all I heard were positive things about the resiliency of our school staffs, the hard work that was being done by everybody from the superintendent down to custodial to be ready to get the schools cleaned in preparation for possibly April 15th, and for this dramatic move to online education. And so after talking to people all day Monday, I changed my mind about making that motion. And, I thought I don't want to make a motion that's going to stop some really good things that are happening. And a teacher friend said to me that, and Dr. Hopes, I will give credit where it's due. I know I've been somewhat negative tonight, but about DOE, but the fact that there is no school grades, there are no evaluations, teachers are finally free to experiment and be creative and try new things. And that has really been an incredibly positive development in a really tough situation in a pandemic. So I decided not to make that motion tonight. I do still I just want to express this and then I'm done. I do, as I said earlier, I have a lot of concerns about how this is going to affect our most vulnerable kids, not just kids that live in poverty, but our ESE students. And I know from conversations that I had yesterday that our ESE staff is doing the same thing that teachers are doing. They're setting up ways to contact their students through Zoom and by phone. And so there are connections there. And, I feel that if our teachers and staff just, create those connections and students feel they're connected to the school, that's probably the best we can do right now. But I am concerned about our at-risk employees. We have a lot of employees who are over 60 years old. We have a lot of employees with compromised immune systems, and I do thank the superintendent because she came up with a plan, and the superintendent team came up with a plan to adhere to CDC guidelines. Everybody could work from home that they can. But I just want to say this publicly. I really hope the governor changes his mind quickly, because if we are going to get this thing under control quickly, we have to follow the lead of other states and just go to a shutdown of non-essential services. And maybe school districts will be considered essential and we'll keep doing what we're doing. But I have heard from a few people that they are scared because they are scared for their health and they are taking precautions. But I just want to let those people know that, this board hears you, this district hears you, the superintendent hears you, and, that we are all in this together. And it's going to end at some point, hopefully sooner. Hopefully the governor does the right thing and we just get everybody inside for 2 weeks and then we get this thing over with and we move on. And I hope at the federal level we do the same thing. But, we are going to come out of the other side. And I just really want to express my respect to the superintendent and her team and to all of our employees in the district who are working through just incredible, as we all know, just an unprecedented kind of human event here that we're all dealing with. So just my thanks to the people in the district for talking me off of the ledge and not making a bad motion tonight. And, just want to express my support, and I thank the board. And Gina, you especially, for pulling this thing together tonight at last minute notice. So thanks, everybody. I will be listening, but I will sign off now. Thanks.
Madam
All right,
Chair.
well,
Madam Chair.
yes, Reverend Golden.
Yes. I thank the Vice Chair for broaching the elephant in the room that we've alluded to many times tonight with respect to the decisions that we've made on behalf of the district. But I think specifically and directly, we need to thank our superintendent for the leadership and the stewardship that she has provided to this school district during these unprecedented times of malicious malevolence that besets all of us. I am particularly appreciative of the efforts that she has gone through to make sure that our employees are not disproportionately impacted and affected by the decisions that are made even above us. For example, the closing of our schools. Her commitment has been steadfast and her direction has been set. We are open for business, even though our buildings are closed because of the virus. She has been in dialogue with the Director of Public Health, specifically about how this disease has impacted the school district. It is no secret that there are 2 cases published in the newspaper today about people who have been impacted by the COVID virus 19. We know, as a matter of fact, not as a matter of opinion, not as a matter of thought or idea or direction, but as a matter of fact, that the incubation period for this virus is somewhere around 14 plus days. And so what we have learned here in this district is that if you are involved at Lakewood Ranch High School, or if you were involved with Sugg Middle School, you would already be exhibiting the symptoms that are associated most commonly with this virus by now. And even if you are not exhibiting those symptoms, you would be contacted by the Manatee County Health Department. So if you are not exhibiting symptoms and have not been contacted by the school board of Manatee County, simply continue to follow the directions and instructions of the CDC. Practice good hygiene, practice safe distancing, and practice trying to be as circumspect in your travels as you can. No unnecessary traveling. But whatever else we do, let us not become more fearful. This challenge can be and will be overcome, but only because it is fought intelligently with the best resources that we have available and with the best character we can bring to bear on these circumstances. So I just want to thank our superintendent for not only her leadership, but her calm stewardship in this time of trial for all of us in this community, in this state, across the nation, and around the world. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Madam Superintendent.
Madam Chair? She's still there? No, she's signing. Okay. Well, let me say it anyway. Thank you, Superintendent. You've done a terrific job.
That PIN is invalid for
The most difficult
Please
situation.
enter the conference PIN number.
Definitely a team. I could not do it without the support of the board and the direction of the team and the teachers in the school, as well as the district staff. I mean, it definitely is a concerted effort by everyone. And we're doing remarkable things in a very remarkable time. So thank you all.
Okay.
So I think everybody's gone. Are we going to close the meeting? Okay, we adjourn the meeting. 8:40. Thank you very much.
8:40, okay.
Well, I thought I had you. I thought you were going to withdraw. I thought you were going to withdraw.
Stop going down the street, that goes off.
I know.
Please
Okay.
enter the conference PIN number. Please enter the conference PIN number. Goodbye. Please enter the conference PIN number. Please state your name after the tone. When you have finished, press pound. Thank you. You are currently the only person in this conference.